Hello, everyone, and welcome to our follow-up interview to the lunchtime talk on gender equality and public procurement. And today we are speaking to Helena Morais Maceira, whom you've already heard from during the lunchtime talk, and she works for the European Institute for Gender Equality. Helena, can you please show us the gender responsive public procurement toolkit and how it can be consulted?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Anna. The toolkit, it's out. We published the PDF version of the toolkit on the 1st of March. It's available on our website. And the toolkit, this is the cover. It's structured around the public procurement cycle. So with the pre-procurement stage, procurement and post-procurement stage. This is part of the how-to section. Before preceding the how-to section, we have the who section, the what is public procurement responsive to gender equality, and why sections as well. Throughout the toolkit, you will see color boxes, and these aim to clarify how GRPP can be implemented step by step. So, for example, we will have blue boxes presenting examples of laws, policy frameworks, support structures, and so on. Yellow or orange boxes presenting examples of tendering procedures. Green ones are how to act boxes with detailed guidance. The red one are mistakes to avoid, and the purple present legal explanations or explanations of the legal framework more in depth. I will briefly go to the pre-procurement stage. For example, it starts with general guidance, the different entry points under the procurement stage, and then it jumps, for example, into the first step within a needs assessment, general guidance, a blue box with an example, followed by a yellow-orange one with an example of public procurement, a how to act box, mistakes to avoid box, and then it's followed by a dedicated tool. In this case, it's a decision tree to assess the gender relevance of public procurement contracts. It includes, the toolkit includes 13 tailored tools. So the PDF, it's available at the moment, and the online version will be we are finalizing it, and it should be published available in a couple of weeks or so.
Thank you very much, Helena. That's very informative, and it's very important for our audience to also see the toolkit and how it's structured. I also wanted to ask you, when you check the state of play and the different practices on gender responsive procurement across the EU, did you get any information on how suppliers react to these requirements? And did you notice, for example, any challenges or any impact in particular on small and medium enterprises or social businesses?
Um, one of the things that we notice is that when support services, support offices are in place, which extend the services, let's say, to suppliers, those have been key in the acceptance and the successful implementation of gender responsive public procurement, not only, of course, in the administration, but also when it comes to potential bidders. We have identified and highlighted one example, which comes from Vienna, from the city of Vienna, where we saw, for example, that they have different ways of promoting GRPP, but one of them is through the promotion of women in contract performance clauses. And to do so, the bidder has to select activities from a catalog of measures they commit to implement during the performance of the contract. These measures tackle different aspects of gender equality into contracts performance, such as, for example, work-life balance, gender stereotypes, tackling gender stereotypes, fostering women in leadership positions, or sexual harassment at work, for example. And the city of Vienna, what they have done is that their structures in place provide information to potential bidders on how to design and implement those gender equality measures. So measures that are tailored to the specific contract. This support structure that the city of Vienna has in place for bidders has issued a guidance with specific modules on various aspects of gender equality and examples as well of how companies have introduced measures to specific contracts. For example, when it comes to flexible working arrangements. And with this tailored support, Vienna expects companies to become keener on implementing these measures, but also they expect that the impacts will last beyond the implementation of the contract, because one of the things that we've noticed is that when steps are taken to increase gender equality in companies, then those usually or not usually roll back so easy, let's say.
That's very encouraging news. It's also a recurring theme, I guess, for contract clauses that require a certain performance when it comes to the staff that's performing the contract, because it's always, I mean, it's always a precise contract we are talking about, but it doesn't necessarily span the whole activity of the company. But knowing that these type of requirements have a real impact also on the workers, and in the long run, it's very encouraging. But let me also ask you, because we've talked a lot about gender responsive practices, which relate mainly to the treatment of the staff performing the contract. But have you noticed any practices which are gender responsive in the sense that they improve the inclusiveness of a service, or they carry an additional benefit in terms of equality of treatment for users and beneficiaries?
Yes. For example, we've seen in France, in the department of Gironde, that they have considered the gender perspective in procurements for the construction and renovation of secondary schools. And there, in this case, the objective was to ensure that for all construction and renovation work, the different use of the areas of the school by both girls and boys is being considered. And they also made sure that, for example, possible differences, gender differences when it comes to the use of the different spaces of the school, such as the use of the playground, for example, and the spaces which both, I mean, girls or boys might use in the school area are also considered and highlighted as well in this construction and renovation work. And as a result, then bidders were asked to present proposals where all solutions, when it comes to the, as I said before, to the use of the space, different spaces in the schools, but also in terms of furniture, for example, allow for a balanced use of the spaces. And then how are they doing this? Well, there is a constant dialogue between the architects, the designers, the department authorities, and then the gender experts that have been involved in the implementation of the work. And again, the final goal is to achieve an inclusive design that helps remove gender inequalities and challenge gender stereotypes. So there is no doubt that GRPP can lead to better tailored, let's say, and high quality services benefiting the users and beneficiaries of a contract. And for that, it's very important that, for example, the different needs of women and men in all their diversity as end users is considered in relation to the services or to the goods being purchased. And for example, a way of doing this is through a gender responsive needs assessment. And I will give an example in the case of public transport contracts. For example, it would be important to look and to consider if different groups of women and men beneficiaries, depending, for example, on their age, on their family situation, if they have children or not, for example, socioeconomic situation, disability, if they belong to a rural or urban location, if those specific groups have different needs when it comes to the use of public transport, different mobility patterns, different perceptions, for example, of security, which might impact then the use or not of the services at night, etc., etc. And then the tendering, let's say, resulting of this assessment or produce after the data from this assessment is considered should respond indeed to the specific needs, benefiting not only the users of the contract, but I would even say that it extends to the whole society. And the reason is because there might be in some cases some spillover effects in terms, for example, of labor market participation and contribution to the formal economy, or even climate change impacts. And this is because transport choices and habits, such as the use of private car use, are gendered. So indeed, it's very important to look more in depth into the specific needs of the end users.
Thank you very much. This was an incredibly interesting answer for me to listen to, because it touches upon a lot of the issues that we are working on, and a more general, if you want, concept of value-based procurement, which also brings about spillover effects that are difficult to predict even when you are preparing the procurement. So you're trying to address one issue, but by addressing that one issue, in this case, the access to a service, the inclusive access to a service, you're also actually helping resolve other wider issues. So thank you very much. This was very, very important and very interesting. Let me ask you one last question. So will you come up in your work on gender responsive procurement with recommendations, maybe for public buyers or for other actors that are involved, even including the Commission? And can we have a preview of those recommendations?
Yes, yes, Anna, we will be issuing recommendations to the EU institutions, member states, national authorities, and also contracting authorities, public buyers as well. In a nutshell, we will call institutions to identify gender equality as an essential aim and principle of procurement in the EU, national, regional, and local procurement policies and strategies, to recognize GRPP as a relevant tool for implementing gender mainstreaming and gender budgeting in the policy framework for gender equality. We will also call institutions to set targets for the implementation of GRPP together with effective monitoring and reporting systems, introduce contractual requirements for the contractors to monitor or report on the implementation of GRPP conditions, and set consequences for failure to meet the targets. We will also consider recommendations regarding guidance and examples of how and when gender issues can be taken into account during each stage of the procurement, and the setup of help desks, capacity building, and support structures to indeed provide advice, information, and dissemination of good practices. Another recommendation would look at the collaboration between gender equality bodies or departments and public procurement offices, with the aim of promoting this collaboration. And we will also be issuing recommendations in the light of a possible amendment of the EU directives on public procurement. So EIGE will be publishing its main report in this field. The report will present research findings, case studies, and the policy recommendations. It will, as I was saying, we will be publishing at the end of next month, at the end of April.
Thank you very much, Helena. Thank you for your time and for the insights that you gave us today. I just wanted to remind to our followers that you will find some additional useful links in the description of this video below. And of course, see you at the next lunchtime talk on social procurement. Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you.